Second World War and the impact of the veterans returning to college produced an explosion in higher education. Dr. Matheson, when did this increase in the personnel coming to school really overtake the capability of the college to handle them?
Well, of course, it started in January of '46 with a little trickle. Then in January of '47, rather than in the fall, we had a big input. And we found out that with the facilities that we had, that we could not take care of them in day school. And so we actually, before the third year of that influx, we had about a third of our students coming at night. But it really didn't hit us until about '55. All the fellows were back. A good many of them had decided they were not going to have any college, and then all of a sudden they realized the GI Bill. And a good many of them had grandiose plans about going to MIT or Harvard or Southern Cal. And they found out that even with the GI Bill that they couldn't do it. And so we just had a tremendous number of local people who began to come to Paducah Junior College. It really did not explode until we moved into the new facility
At 707.
At 707 in 1952. And the philosophy back of building down where we already were, where the transportation was easy, where parking, we didn't have to buy it, all sorts of things made us do it. And in that new facility, we had what looked like to us unlimited resources. But in 1955, we had 356 students, day and night, and we were supposed to have a capacity of 375.
Almost capacity.
Almost capacity in '55, 3 years after we built the new building. Now this, we just simply could not have taken care of, and had it not been for some luck and some adaptation. In the first place, we did something that every commuter school eventually did, but we were one of the first in the United States to do it. We started a 5-day week. Everybody else had Monday, Wednesday, and Friday classes, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday classes. Well, for commuters, very often they would find themselves with an English comp class at 10 o'clock in the middle of Saturday morning, and nothing else. They had tried their best to get everything on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they hadn't made it on that one. And here was the person driving from 40 miles to and so we made a staggered class schedule, and it's not very complicated. It has 7 different possibilities in it. They dovetail into each other just like that. And we just simply thought that it was a common sense dealing with reality. I didn't attach much significance to it. But Western Kentucky University, 2 years later, had one that was not nearly as simple, not nearly as easy to explain, and it made national publication. And we had already had ours for 2 years, and Murray State had taken ours and adopted it. And neither one of us got any credit. And we had a much, but there it was. See, and then that gave us Saturday morning, you see, with an open door. And we filled it with engineering drawing. We filled it with refresher courses for teachers. We filled it with 3-hour courses taken, you see, once a day. And now Saturday, we had more people there on Saturday sometimes than we did on Tuesday. Well, on Tuesday.
Well, you actually increased your capacity.
Keep your capacity. by doing that, it made us run full 7 sessions, you see, across the board. And it was a remarkable thing. We had the only classes that met on Wednesday at 9 o'clock were some 4-hour math classes and stenography.
Well, this gave you a chance to use that hour for other purposes also.
And so that made, except for a shorthand class and a couple of math classes that were going to meet 4 times a week anyway, that we had an activity period there that anybody could come to. And I remember my secretary said she was in a girls' room at Murray and heard 2 Paducah Junior College alumni talking to Murray people. At that time, they were having a terrible flap about compulsory attendance at chapel. And the girl from Paducah said, well, we don't have compulsory chapel, I don't believe. But said everybody goes because they're afraid they'll miss something. Mm-hmm.
Completely different attitude.
Different, you know. Everybody goes because they're afraid they'll miss something. But that having that hour and no attempt artificially to fill it up with college activities just was a real fine thing.
So you met the growth initially then by innovative scheduling.
Yeah.
But I suspect even that was taxed to the limit within a short period of time.
Well, we had to defend a certain thing before the Southern Association. We had a large class every hour in the auditorium. And we let the classes, you could seat 78 people in the auditorium with a tablet, and then nobody every other seat. And so we would allow a class to go to 80 in that. And we had it every hour.
Every hour.
And we had sociology at 8. We had psychology at 9. We had American government at 10. We had health and hygiene at 11. And that took a class of 3 sections of people at one time. And when we appeared before the Southern Association, we were jacked up about it. The defense that we made was that we have a university parallel curriculum. We're preparing our students for the University of Kentucky. And we think that everybody should have at least 2 big classes in their undergraduate work to prepare them for the immense classes they're going to have as juniors and seniors. And they couldn't say much.
And you got through the complaint with the Southern Association by using this.
Yes. So, and that taught us, and as we made plans to move too, about large classrooms in case you ever had that problem to arise again.
And so you would anticipate at least one large classroom as being a necessary part of each building.
Yes.
And with flexible scheduling, you can take advantage of the full use of each room in that building.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to flexible scheduling, did you have to make any personnel changes to meet the increased flux of students coming in?
Well, the additional problems of administration, the public relations, the federal relations, the registration, all sorts of things, along with Social Security, pension plans, floating of bonds, all sorts of strictly religious and semi-legal problems began to impinge on us. And so it just, I explained to the board that it had gotten to the point where that 2 people, that one man couldn't do all of it. and told me that I wanted a business manager, and he asked me if we can get the right man, we'll authorize it. I said, well, we already have him if he'll take it. And it was Royce Gregor. He had been teaching in the night school.
I believe he taught mathematics, wasn't
Yes.
it, at night?
And he had impressed us so with his interest in every question that came up. He was interested in everything that was going on in the day school. And his questions about what interested him showed us that he had a grasp of the whole proposition. Then he'd had a lot of business experience working in the Paducah Bank, and he had been the receiver for a large plumbing outfit. And that had taught him all sorts of things about construction, about shortcuts, about all kinds of. And as receiver for that outfit, he had worked with a whole lot of construction people. So he was ideal for the fact that we already anticipated
New structures.
New structures and new problems and new financings, you know. And we were really fortunate to have him come with us.
So he was the nucleus of the new administrative team that you were putting together, looking toward the future and looking also at making better use of the facilities you had along the way.
Yes. Also, we got another young man. We got Sonny Halls as coach and dean of men.
Well, now the coaching to that time, well, basketball had always been a very important part of Paducah Junior College, had it not?
Yeah.
Did you ever contemplate divorcing Paducah Junior College from intercollegiate athletics?
Yes, as I look back on it, Rex Alexander and I in '56 went to the Board of Trustees and recommended that they cut out basketball. I think really it was more cut it out or do it right.
No.
Yeah, I think that was in our. In other words, are we going to keep on doing it like we've been doing it to cut it out?
Well, the coach was a full-time faculty member at that
Yes.
time, or just?
No, the coach taught. It was almost standard that the coach taught American government and American history, or I've forgotten. It was always American government, and one or two other. So we couldn't have a full-time coach. But
well, how successful had they been?
well, they had been real successful. But after the board turned down our suggestion and told us that they would back us, the Kentucky Association of Junior Colleges, I had rewritten the Constitution. I had been appointed by the association to rewrite the Constitution, and we had gone to a lot of trouble with it, and we had a consensus and rewrote it. And in it, you were allowed 6 scholarships for basketball. And that at Lindsey Wilson meant room and board and tuition. If the person was not a dormitory student, then it was limited, you see. But they were allowed 7 full ones, but they could divide it and give 14 half scholarships. And so equating what expenses were for our students and for what we could do for them for food and for transportation, we had it all so that it was legal, and we knew what we could do and we knew what we couldn't do. And so we were able to bring boys into the house next door after games and spend the night. We could give them food, and we could take care of them until they could get home. And we could give them tuition and books. And we loaned them the books, and they had to return the books, all the workbooks and things like that. They were there. But legally we were able to do quite a bit, much more than we had been able to do. And so we began to improve. We never did run a real expensive program, but we could do something for our athletes, and immediately it began to pick up. And the next coach that came was, we had Shirley Dunn for 1 year, and he knew it was 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Dodson, and then Skinner. And strange enough, Dodson won the state tournament and the conference.
Both that year.
Both.
Mm-hmm.
And that was seldom done. The next year, Skinner did it. And the next year, Halls did it.
3 in a row.
3 in a row. I remember when I was down in Mississippi, they told me, said, boy, you must have a good coach up there to be able to do that. I said, well, I think we ought to have a little credit, you know.
And yet you had 3 coaches, and you turned your coaches over. Why did you give up some people like Skinner? Or,
Well, Dodson left on his own accord. Skinner left after the Paducah Junior College team had been out-coached playing Vanderbilt freshmen. We were playing Vanderbilt freshmen, St. Louis freshmen, Western freshmen, and Murray freshmen every year. Real competition. Holding our own with that sort of competition. Easy Ed McCauley was center for the freshman team that came from St. Louis when we played them in what's now the Jeton Gym. But this loss of Skinner was really a big compliment to us, because it's the only coaching he'd ever did was 1 year at Paducah Junior College. He'd coached a little bit of kids at YMCA, but he had played under Norm Sloan at Presbyterian College for 2 years. Norm Sloan made a name for himself at North Carolina State, and now is at Florida. And he played for him, and evidently he is a good coach, and evidently he was able to impart his.
And so while he was here, he actually out-coached the coach of the Vanderbilt team. Is that correct?
Coach of the freshman team. And he went down there as freshman coach and assistant varsity coach.
And so Vanderbilt really stole him away from you after they saw what he could do.
He told me, he said, I would love to have had 2 or maybe 3 years of real experience with different types of talent, you know, under different circumstances. But says this is the kind of offer that doesn't come but once in a lifetime.
And so he went from Paducah Junior College and became the freshman coach at Vanderbilt, and then I believe later he became
Polk had a heart attack, and he actually took over
and served as the SEC coach at Vanderbilt for several years.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the man who replaced him did rather well, too, with the basketball program.
Well, he told me, they said, I don't mind leaving if you'll get the man that I think you ought to get, and that was Sonny Halls.
Of course, it was Sonny Halls that brought the program really to its highest point.
Yes. And as an aside, in addition to basketball, in 1959, we were one of the 8 teams that played for the national championship in baseball.
In baseball?
Yeah.
So we had more than one athletic
and we
sport.
had good tennis teams, both girls and boys. It worked itself out pretty well. I remember in baseball, I went on the air asking for help. I said, we ought to send these boys first class. We don't have but $800 that we can possibly raise, and it takes almost twice that. I've forgotten whether I put it just exactly or not. But we raised $1,300 before I could get to the radio the next time to tell people we had enough. And we had one check for $800 written by Anna Holman out at Hugs Drugs. Said anything up to $800 that you need. We used $100 of her 800. That's how much the town. They never came to see the ball games, but when we were going to represent Paducah in the national contest, the whole community backed us.
So there was, from the very beginning, the town had this special feeling for the institution.
Yes, it did.
Well, again, this feeling for the institution, perhaps the town was rather shocked at its own behavior when in 1961 you went to the town and the surrounding community to seek an expanded financial base.
Yeah.
What caused the defeat of the tax levy in '61?
Well, I suppose everybody in the city of Paducah except Frank Paxton thought that it was going to pass. The degree at which it was going to pass was, there's some disagreement on that, but everybody thought it would pass. And Frank Paxton was the only one who said it's not going to pass. And I expect we were a little bit complacent. And I think we probably wrote the county off. We just thought it would be nice if it did. But as it was, we lost by 72 votes. And of course, we really have a good explanation for that. But we're so glad that it happened. We're so glad we lost that we don't want really to spend much time on it. The mayor of the city was politicking against 2 amendments that were on the ballot. The 3rd amendment was this enabling act for the district, for PJC. Well, he was against daylight saving. He was against buying the Illinois Central Railroad Hospital to make it into a city hall. And he had 40 workers out. And he was a little bit afraid that they might not make the proper distinctions. So he had all 40 of those people telling everybody,
vote no.
Vote no on all 3 of the amendments. And I'm sure that they influenced at least 150 or 200 people.
And you lost by
72
votes in the city.
72 votes, half of a percent. And we lost by 400, which was 6% out in the county.
Well, actually, your lack of a basketball floor really proved to be an advantage when you began to really go after the county vote.
Yes.
Not having a home floor, the college would visit the various high schools in the area. But I believe by this time you'd pretty well settled on one home basketball court, had you?
Yes, we'd settled on Lone Oak. For some reason, we could practice at Lone Oak. None of the rest of us, all the rest of them had their athletic programs and their gymnastics and so forth, taking up all the time. But we could practice 3 times a week at Lone Oak. And to practice we had our own place to practice, just for fundamentals. But for geographic strategy and for the plays and things of that kind, you needed to decide the floor you were going to play on. And so we went to the one on which we could practice.
And this really helped bring the identity of the college to the people in the Lone Oak area.
Yes.
Well, then in 1962, when you really set out to go after a support district, I believe you actually employed someone to organize this, and the students themselves, even though they would not see the results of it, they gave their time in the spirit of community identity with the college.
Yes, well, we had Jean Garrison. She really was just an executive secretary. We made the decisions, and I must say this, that I think that the most important thing that happened was that the Sun Democrat was they were really horrified at the fact that lost. And so they gave me Joe Mitchell. And they said, Joe Mitchell's one job will be to help you in constructing your ads.
A media consultant.
A media consultant, free.
And that was a big help, I would
Big
think.
help. And we decided to make it simple, not to get into all kind of arguments. Where are we what's the site's going to be? Because any site you mention, somebody'd be against it.
Right.
Even if people wanted to think that if we went out on a big campus, we might someday be a 4-year college. Let them think it. Not get into philosophical arguments. And we said this, we said the students need a place to go to college. And we had students going into homes telling them, I need a place to go to college. The community needs it. And then we marshaled the facts to show how much money stayed in Paducah. Every student that stayed in Paducah would have taken $1,600 to the University of Kentucky and spent it, most of it there. Then all the 206 people coming across the bridge from out of town, coming in here, putting $600 tuition into the college, going to picture shows, buying in the retail markets, and the money that we got from them, we spent it in Paducah. All of this, we marshaled all these things, and then we said it's not going to cost you much. And we had a girl stand out there with 3 cartons of cigarettes in her arm. And the average homeowner that had a $10,000 home, and that was all right then, would pay the equivalent of 3 packages of cigarettes more.
3 more.
3 more. If he had a $20,000 home, he'd pay for 6. That's how much extra it would cost him. And we didn't say anything else. We didn't put anything in there about philosophy, anything in there about community pride, anything there about 4-year college, anything in there about the site, where we were going to do it, anything else. And it went over just like the least little bit of being 3-to-1 in the city. 3-to-1.
3-to-1.
Yes, it was 73% to 27%. And in the county, it went 64 to 36, almost 2-to-1 in the county.
And the county is the more remarkable because they were agreeing to impose up to a 14-cent
Yes, sir.
tax on themselves, and the city was only agreeing to in effect, what, a 7 cent
more. They were already paying 7. They were agreeing to go to 14. The county was agreeing to go all the way from 0 to 14.
And so here we have this relatively small support district.
Yes.
Just a city and a county taking upon itself a formidable task of constructing a new campus. Well,
With no state aid.
No state aid. But the state at that time, I believe, did make some token gesture, did it not, in '62, when they made some provision for some tuition for each full-time student?
A Kentucky student.
Kentucky student.
Each full-time. Yeah, they made a curriculum development program for Kentucky students, and up to $45,000 a year. This was done really by Bert Combs and Brady Stewart and Fred Paxton. Fred Paxton drove up there in his plane. I went with him. And we had a long talk about what we needed and what could be done. And the upshot of it was that the governor told Brady Stewart that if you can write a bill that'll be legal, that'll allow me to do it, I'll do it.
Well, then from this, the next thing we'll need to look into is the actual process of the move to the new campus. Thank you, sir.
Yes.